some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line? Address it to the Let's Talk program in Pure Vaughan Radio, PO Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. By the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, talk that gets results. With regards to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or a comment, write it down so that you're well organized, and we'll get in the show. You take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we'll not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. You can also follow our live video stream of this program on our Facebook channel and YouTube, and our Facebook page on Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Thank you all again tonight. I don't know. I think I'll let the guys go first, since they've been doing that for a little bit, and then I'll come in with a comment or two afterwards. Conrad Libert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a pleasant good evening to your staff here at Vaughan Radio, to my colleagues around the table. Good evening, and to everyone who in tune by the various means and methods of today to this wonderful program. Webbo, it's a pleasure to be here once again, and of course, without further ado, I would like to pay tribute and homage to the family of Edric Stanley, who have passed, and I'm sure most of us, most people here in Nevis, know Edric very well through the medium of this program, and so I would just want to express my sympathy and pay homage to his contribution to this program, Webbo. As you know, I'm always happy to be here. I'm always happy to be a part of the national debate, the conversation, and I do hope the things we discuss at times, we can arrive at some solutions to the various challenges that we face here in Nevis. Webbo, once again, I'll say thank you for having me, and I look forward to a good debate this evening and discussion. Thank you.
The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues around the table. Let me say, first of all, welcome back, Webbo. It's good to have you back. Let me also say a very pleasant good evening to all those who are listening to this edition of the Let's Talk show here tonight on this wonderful Tuesday here on the island of Nevis. To those who are listening here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, throughout the entire Caribbean region, and to those who are listening throughout the world, really. It's good to be here once again tonight. I want to say, Webbo, to all those who are celebrating tonight, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, or some accomplishment in their life, we certainly hope that they are having a wonderful, wonderful evening. Webbo, to those who are in our various hospitals here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we hope that through to our Creator God and with the assistance of our medical professionals, that they would soon be well and be up and about very shortly. Webbo, we do certainly have a number of families who are in mourning tonight, and as Naya would have indicated, our very own Edric W. Stanley. I want to join with him and offer my sincere condolences to the entire family. I believe, Webbo, that he has certainly been one of the pioneers here on the island of Nevis when it comes to talk show. He was an individual who I believe who set the bar extremely high, and I believe that those of us who would have had the privilege of sitting around the table with him recognize his commitment, recognize his strong views, and recognize that he was all about country above self. So I certainly want to take this opportunity on behalf of my entire family to his family. Well, but we also have recognize the passing of another pioneer who also would have graced this show, the late Hastings Daniel. I want to take this opportunity to offer my condolences to Ron and the entire family. And Webbo, it's a double whammy for that family, because just a few weeks ago they would have also laid his dear wife to rest, and I certainly want to take this opportunity to offer my very deepest condolences to the entire Daniel family on the passing of Hastings and his dear wife. Webbo, tonight we are expecting to have, I believe, some reflections on, I believe, both of these gentlemen and other topics, but I believe tonight we can look forward to perhaps listening even some of those clips from Edric, as he would have graced the airwaves for a few decades. Thank you, Webbo, for the invitation, and I am indeed privileged to be here tonight.
Roger Fifield, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to all those who are listening and viewing via the various mediums. Also, a special good evening to my fellow panelists here in the studio. Webbo, I want to say welcome back to you, and of course you may or may not know, but you are greatly missed. Webbo, I want to share my sympathy with the family of the late great Edric W. Stanley. I would have come into contact with Stanley long before I was part of this panelist here on this show, Webbo, and he was one who was really knowledgeable, who knew a whole lot about life and stuff like that, Webbo. I want to say, Webbo, I would have learned a lot from him. Even after I come on this show, he would have said certain things to me and tried to guide me along on this show, Webbo. So I know there are many who miss him. We all miss him, and I think that he's basically irreplaceable. Webbo, I also want to extend sympathy greetings to the family of Hastings Daniel. I would have interacted with him a number of times. We both commentated for the sports at the Maud Cross Preparatory School over the years, and we had built somewhat of a camaraderie by being commentators together over the years, Webbo. He too would be dearly missed, and as Honorable Brand would have said, it's really a difficult time. We can only imagine what the family is going through after maybe just a matter of weeks ago, his wife was laid to rest. So I want to say a special good evening to Pastor Ron and family, and my teacher, Tedo. Good evening to you wherever you are, and have my sympathies. Well, on the lighter side, I want to say a special good evening and happy birthday to Andrew King Hollywood Nisbet. He's celebrating today, and I hope that he's having a wonderful time, Webbo. Webbo, I want to say thank you once again for this invitation, and I'm looking forward for a really fruitful discussion this evening. As I always say, this is a program that we learn from you, their listening audience, and of course you could learn something from us. So Webbo, once again, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. What I wanted to suggest is that we're going to do something special. I think Mr. Brand had mentioned, did you, Mr. Brand, that Mr. Daniel also is a product of this heavyweight show in the earlier years and stuff like that. And so we want to, for the folks who are not abreast of that, to understand that and acknowledge it as well. So in due course, we will go further on that. And I think that all of you have ably so far expressed our deepest condolences to the family and friends and listeners. And for my own part, the truth is that these moments are very difficult for me. But the way I would operate is that every day, an hour, as we journey along, I try to do what I can. And I'm satisfied that persons are evaluating me in their own way to know whether or not, when I say, Edric, I got you, they would understand the expanse of that, statement and so on. So, because at these times it's real difficult. So, not tonight. Of course, people can, start if they will. But God's willing, next Tuesday, we're going to dedicate the entire time to Edric W. and, of course, Mr. Daniel as well, who, as I said, who had, in the earlier years, made his sojourn here as well. And apart from that, continue to support us here at Vaughan Radio, irrespective of whatever. So, as I said, persons who want to mention it is fine. But I got a couple of other things. First of all, I'll let you guys, if you have other stuff you want to put on the table, you could go ahead. But I have some notations here. And one of it is what everybody else is thinking on right now. The world election in the United States. And in life, as we go along, certainly I try to be that way. If maybe not the architect, but I would argue maybe I am the godfather of a light moment. I can tell when something is. And so there are lots of it in that election.
A lot of it. Light moment?
Yeah, oh yeah. So I just wanted to mention one of them that I find fascinating. The Donald says, the women, I just love them. I'm your protector. Whether you like it or not.
If you don't believe it.
No, whether you like it or not. So I'm listening to this show and a commentator says, a lady commentator, you must believe him. That's why he has to pay so much money to one of them, because anyway, so lots of stuff like that. But on a more serious note, we are, facing something very, very monstrous. That's number one. Number two, I'm sure that you might be abreast of the tragedy in Antigua, where that politician, member of parliament,
Asset Michael.
This place and this world, ain't no maybe about it, no if, no buts, no maybes about it. And as a product of the rhetoric, it's coming rough, real rough. And as we go from one election to the other, in different parts of the region and the world, you see how tense things are getting? And these are some of the things that, we try to. And I watch the rhetoric, listen to the rhetoric in the islands. And next time around, it's going to be real rough, because people can give the different reasons why. But the reality is, the other thing, so those are just some of the two areas, two of the areas I wanted to mention, but I'll yield to you gentlemen to see whether or not you have anything and continue the discussion.
Well, when I tuned in earlier today and I read about the passing of Assad Michael, I was really taken aback. I am going to follow the Antigua Barbuda politics over the years, and following the politics, I learned over the years that Assad Michael was a man of the people, a man for the people, a man whom his constituents and the entire Antigua Barbudan public would have loved dearly. There was an interview on ABS right outside his home, and the interviewer, he interviewed a number of persons, and all of the interviewees basically were singing the same song. You know, he's a man, he was kind-hearted, he helped people. There was one young lady who said that, you know, he asked her if she wanted any help in anything. And bear in mind that this particular lady wasn't one of his constituents. And she said yes, she moved and she would have wanted some wire to fence. And she stated that, you know, he bought the wire, he paid for everything. I get that she's a vendor, and she normally vends around carnival time. And he came and he patronized her, and he asked, do you want a stove? And she said, no, it's okay, just the wire is fine. You know, the last elections there in Antigua, we know that he was a part of the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party. And for all his entire tenure in politics, he would have run the constituency of St. Peter's. And even when he broke away from the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party and ran independent, and we know around here, especially in the English-speaking Caribbean, probably barring Anguilla and probably Montserrat, you know, it's very difficult for independent candidates to win. And I believe that he might have been the first independent candidate to win his seat in Antigua, to create some sort of history. And he just didn't win his seat, you know, by a narrow margin. He won his seat as an independent candidate in the constituency of St. Peter by a landslide last election. Bearing in mind that, you know, people, as I said, you know, normally vote along party lines. But that was the man. The man was loved. You know, I mean, you know, it's like, although I never met him personally, you know, because of following, is almost as if I knew the man. You know, he was loved. You know, I mean, everybody have a good side and a bad side. We know a lot of negative things would have said about him, you know, in the past too, especially leading up to the last elections and stuff like that I'm not going to go into. But, you know, generally he was loved. The Commissioner of Police, Atlee Rodney, he would have stated earlier today that he's going to consult, you know, he's going to reach out to his regional and international partners. He's basically saying that he's not going to leave any stones unturned. I believe that we have to look on. It is saying when your house is on fire, you know, the neighbor should wet his or hers. We realized that he was a sitting member of Parliament, albeit not on the government benches. He was a member of Parliament, and I think that was the first such murder in the history of Antigua Barbuda, that a sitting parliamentarian was murdered in cold blood. So I want to believe that they are going to do a full investigation. I think up to late this afternoon, the ABS News would have said that the police have someone of interest, but because it's early stages in the investigation, they are not going to reveal any names or name of who the suspect is. Of course, it's really high level, and I suspect that the police wouldn't want anybody to be pointing fingers and probably want to take actions into their own hand, especially as I said, he was really loved. He touched almost every facet of Antigua, and I want to believe that the Prime Minister too, Gaston Brown, who would have also, he came out earlier and he made a statement too, and I believe that him as Prime Minister and the hierarchy of the Antigua Police Force, Antigua Barbuda Police Force, I believe they're going to go all out to really put all the work into investigating to come up, to solve this murder. I do not believe that they would want it to go, unsolved, especially that he was a sitting parliamentarian, Webbo. So we're going to look on, we're going to watch, and we're going to see exactly what unfolds in the days to come, in the weeks to come. And as I said, we have to be really, really, pay keen attention and see what's going on in neighboring Antigua Barbuda, Webbo.
I wanted to, not you continue if anyone else want to make a contribution on that, but someone had politely asked me to just play something, notwithstanding I said but they just want to hear this particular thing from Edric.
Yeah.
And what I find now is so fascinating about this thing with Edric W. is the range of people from different walks of life who has a quotation on their favorite thing from Edric W. and what they had learned from him. You know? So a fellow asked me to do this. I just found it. So let's just do it.
Intensity.
Do you expect, as a children, you're going to tell the board directors you can do what you want, if you want, when you want, how you want. You're going mad?
Passion.
The Caribbean is second only to sub-Saharan Africa. When you look at the Caribbean, which is a little dot, and imagine that after that huge continent, in terms of the prevalence of HIV and AIDS, the Caribbean region have to take drastic steps now rather than later to combat the epidemic.
Credibility and experience.
Section with the invoices. That is the part that disturbed me, because I could give you a little story. Once you've got several items for different dates, for different amounts, carrying the same number, it tells you that there is something fishy about it.
Edric Webbo Herbert.
Yeah, that's the part. Yeah, that's the part. He always had some little story. So off the record, maybe on the record as well, I asked Edric more than once, those stories, the real? Yeah, anyway, so just
you put three topics on the table for tonight: the U.S. election, as with Michael, and of course the rhetoric. Before we get to those, Webbo, one of the shocking interaction that I've had with Edric W. Stanley was when I was launched as a candidate for CCM in 2013. We had a small ceremony there at the CCM office, and one reporter asked me what were my plans for St. Paul's. And I remember saying to that reporter that most of the plans for the island were enshrined in our manifesto, something to that effect. And Webbo, the next day, I believe that Edric may have heard that reply. And the next day, Edric came and looked for me. And Edric gave me a piece of his mind. In essence, he said, whenever somebody put a microphone in front of you, say exactly what's on your mind. Don't allow anybody else to say anything for you. You have a tongue in your mouth and you must say exactly what was on your mind. And he was so animated about the whole situation and the conversation that he said, you know, when you need to, and I reflected on that when I heard of his passing, because there have been many conversations, Webbo, over the years with Edric W. And when we reflect on his life, Edric was a businessman, he was a husband, he was a father. He would tell you that he was a jockey, a pilot, a fisherman, everything. But I think that one of the things that in my mind captivate the Edric W. Stanley that we all knew, that he was a statesman. These two islands called St. Kitts and Nevis, I believe that all of us by now knew that Edric had some very strong views about these two islands. And I have sat across from Edric and I've listened and I've been in awe of how Edric over those years continued to make those points and those arguments that these two islands are special, they are unique, and there are certain things that we need to do and we need not to do. And I'm sure that next week, Webbo, when you play some of those tapes, some of that is going to come true. He was not someone who was not afraid to voice his opinion on any issue, on any topic. And Webbo, tonight we are here waiting the results of the US election.
Bran, one more thing I want you all to consider.
Yes.
On the same US election.
Yes.
Right? Which is being discussed, but everybody loves a winner.
Yes.
But mark my words, if the Democrats don't come home in this election, one of the big issues will be Kamala. Well, Trump will say Kamala. What Trump says, what kind of name is that? I wanted to say Harris, but that's worse. Anyway, so Kamala, I think you will hear a lot about this discussion, because a lot of persons are not happy with how she got the nomination. In fact, some people are debating it was not U.S. Constitution, but the Democratic Party Constitution. It was unconstitutional. And I, in fact, heard an interview with Hillary Clinton, and she gloated how they were able to maneuver the situation to get Kamala in, because some other persons were arguing that they should have even a short primary. Now, listen out for this fellow, Governor Newsom from California. Listen out for that name as you go forward in the Democratic Party. And even as you said that, Bran, this would have been a real good night for us with Edric W. Stanley, because he is a Republican. This is what I'm saying. So, you know, so I wonder if he couldn't have hold on just until that. You know,
I was getting to that movie.
Okay, go ahead.
I was saying that tonight we are here at the eve of the U.S. presidential election, and Edric, I believe, if you were here, and he's not, and God rest his soul, Edric would have been making the case, the very strong case, as to why Trump should not be the president of the United States. And
notwithstanding he's the head of his party.
That's But I think that like I said, he held some very strong views. Sometimes I believe that he would say certain things here on the radio, and many persons days after were still trying to figure out exactly what it is that Edric was saying. I think oftentimes, Webbo, you would say that you have disconnected me. But that was Edric. That was what make him that kind of unique and special individual.
You mean every now and then he will disconnect me?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me rephrase that. He would disconnect us.
Yeah, well.
But I feel, Webbo, that tonight would have been a wonderful night for Edric, because I know that he would have been reveling in the returns in the election, hoping and praying that one team would have, came out victorious versus the other. But that is not to be. And as Roger would have said earlier, he definitely will be missed. Webbo, you also mentioned the Asset Michael and the rhetoric. And I think you put three of them, not necessarily linking both of them together. I've listened to Mr. Michael over the years, and some people may argue that at times he can be controversial, but he again perhaps cut from a similar material as Edric, or fearless in their comments. They basically had that, in my mind, that grassroots upbringing kind of background and that kind of mentality. I know that he have been one who have been a very boisterous politician in Antigua and Barbuda, and over the years I believe that his contribution to the political landscape in Antigua and Barbuda have brought a lot of value to that country, and I would even dare say to the region, because a lot of the arguments that he would have made, not only in the interests of the peoples of Antigua and Barbuda, but on a regional basis. The circumstances of his passing, I believe in time, perhaps will come to light. And I believe that while we continue to reflect on this particular situation, we are not to set aside, perhaps, as you said, the rhetoric. And when you look at the rhetoric that was coming out of the US election, it was very disheartening and troubling to some of the things that have been said. And I hope, Webbo, that we can get to a stage and we can get to a point where not only in the US, and not only because a lot of countries are looking at what the US does, they heavily influence a lot of the political discourse globally. And I feel that we need to get past this kind of what I call an impasse in this political rank-tangling and rancor. It is, for me, Webbo, a great hope that democracy will survive in the US after this election, because if some of the utterances that would have come from Donald Trump's side were to ever come to light, I believe globally we would be in a serious problem. So the rhetoric is something that we need to be mindful of, and I believe that the entire world, as you said, Webbo, is waiting with a bated breath as to what the outcome of that election will be.
Well, since a bit has been said about Edric, I probably would say a bit myself. I mean, apart from sitting here with Edric over the last probably 16, 17 years, I knew Edric from the late 1980s, and a shrewd businessman, very shrewd businessman. I think in dealing with Edric, you also have to expect certain principles that sometimes you probably have been a bit relaxed with. I worked for Edric back then, and I could remember during the Gulf War, I built a tank for Edric. And Edric told me that I got to come to his place and test the tank. I had to fill it with water or with air before he paid me. And of course I had my rough time with Edric. You know, shrewd businessman, and he will defend his point, as he always said, tooth and nail.
Yep.
Even when he's wrong. You know, and I think
Did
that
he ever admit that he was wrong?
no, but we know there are times Edric, you know, sometimes not right, but strong character, and pretty much well learned. You know, he had something to say on almost every topic, you know, and something of importance and something of significance. And Edric would be greatly missed here on the program. He promised me he would have come back. He said he was just giving, you know, the youngsters a chance, but he would have come back. But obviously he won't. And may his soul rest in peace. You know, even coming onto this program, it wasn't easy for me as it relates to Edric. You know, Edric was pretty much on my case a lot, and we had to come to terms with each other for some reason, and then it took a while before, you know, me and Edric get, you know, a bit comfortable, because I don't know, we sometimes find ourselves on different ends of the discussion and points and objectives sometimes. He was a statesman, yes. He lives for the unification of the Federation. You just couldn't separate him from that. And I think he was a proud Nivision also. And yes, as you have said, Mr. Brand, you know, he was country above self. And I wish a lot of us can really share such commitment that he shares. I think he was a very principled individual as well, very strict on himself, and he's one to listen to as it relates to finance as well, because I sit in on the program with Edric Stanley. I myself had to really adapt some of his financial principles, which he always tend to advocate. You know, he said to save 10 cents out of every dollar, and you won't have to worry, you know, by the time you become 40 years old. And today I find myself talking to a young guy, my apprentice, and I'm trying to relate that to him, you know, and the truth is I got that from Edric. You know, and really it's something to think deeply about. It's something to try to achieve. It's not easy, even though it sounds pretty easy. But Edric, I salute I salute Edric in many different ways, you know, and he will be greatly missed. He'll be greatly missed. He was, to me, to a great extent, a cornerstone of the discussion, of the debate as it relates to Nevis. I think he was a part of the NRP, then he became a part of, or a strong supporter of the CCM. You know, I don't think he moves around for any personal reasons, really, but, you know, that commitment towards what he think is right and righteous, you know. I think he was also an ardent Christian. He suffered a bit here in Nevis, you know, surviving gunshot and all that type of stuff. So Edric was not easy individual. He was not very proud, and I like that about him, you know. And so, as we will, you know, dedicate next week Tuesday to his contribution to the show, I suppose, you know, we will reflect a lot more about Edric. As it relates to the American election, the presidential election, yes, it's something that all of us the outcome will affect all of us, I suppose, and all of us have our preference. But one thing we all will agree with is the rhetoric and the exchange and the employment of language that we've been hearing, and I would say coming from both sides. And everyone have their preference, but I think there's a lot of great accusations have been made of against Donald Trump, and Donald Trump himself have said quite uncompromising thing, I suppose, things about Kamala. But at the end of the day, I believe the best candidate would win, and I don't think it would be another January 6th or something to that extent, really. I hope not, really, because I think the U.S. represents the pinnacle of global democratic principle. I suppose they seems to define what is democratic and what is not. They say Israel is a democracy, and Israel doesn't like journalists saying anything about against them, and so they shut down all the offices and kill journalists. So as I think about those circumstances, I kind of think about the Caribbean as well, and Mr. Branagh said, I hope at the end of the election democracy will survive in the U.S. But I believe democracy is pretty much under threat here in the Caribbean as well. I believe that in terms of the rhetoric, that, as you say, Webbo, the next time around, not just here in Nevis, but in the region, I think the rhetoric will get out of hand, because of course with social media, and it makes you wonder, what do the people really want to hear? I think social media have turned us on to a lot of jokey stuff, a lot of, to me, entertaining stuff, and I think a lot of politicians would feel like it's easy to employ such joking stuff and character assassination and such things in order to get support from the general public, and I think social media have a lot to do with it. But it begs the question if we are heading in the right direction as it relates to upholding the principles of democracy. I believe I've been seeing a lot of things where the trend of victimization, that is not democratic in a sense. I believe that when a government is in place, it's supposed to be a government of all the people, those who support the government or not. I believe that people should be free to have an opinion, whether in writing or verbally expressing it, without having to face great victimization. I believe the press should be free to write, of course respecting morality and of course speaking of expressing its opinion on political matters, social and economic matters. But I think we are slowly developing that attitude where such things are becoming offensive, and that to me is a threat to democracy. And I think we ought to be looking seriously at that in the region. Look at what happened in Antigua. I don't know the great details of it, but hearing it from you guys, it seems as if that the victim was a man of the people. And when you are so closely linked to the people, you can be loved by a lot of people, but you can be politically dangerous to some people also. And if we don't look at such things in a kind of develop and in a kind of respectable way, then we can employ a lot of bad stuff going forward. We know that crime is rampant throughout the region, and we also know that there seems to be a lot of guns around. And so if we, the politicians, does not speak to these matters in a very serious way, then things can really get out of hand. Things can get out of hand, because really the politicians are sometimes looked at as the leaders, and so they have that responsibility to lead. Even when they are not in government, they have that responsibility to obviously protect the people. They have the responsibility to lead our political culture in a bad way or good way. And I think we got to be very mindful. The rhetoric is out of hand, and I hope that actions now will not get out of hand, and really, spread across the region. Because if you are so loved by the people, if you're truly a person of the people, you can be, within inverted commas, pose some kind of danger to the establishment. And I think the establishment sometimes have to, or those who seems to represent the establishment, has to really take time out. We on these forums have to take time out and really guide the people, speak to these matters, and cease to employ that type of rhetoric that would bring our political culture closer to the edge of harm in people, and some form of decadence as it relates to people's freedom to express their opinion, people's freedom to govern, people's freedom to really say things within the scope of morality and respect. There's a lot on the table right now. There's a lot on the table as it relates to the rhetoric, what can happen, the possibilities, and so we should not be wary of talking about these things. You see what happened in America, 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump's life, and that to me speaks to the level of negative discourse that we have been hearing, and I hope that such things doesn't come closer to our home here within the Federation.
Webbo, as we on politics, I think I would have heard on the news sometime recently that the Ralph Gonzalez-led administration in St. Vincent and the Grenadines would have passed a bill that public servants now can run for public office without fear of losing their jobs. I think that it is something that I believe other Caribbean islands are going to look to. I mean, probably even when you look at the case sometime a few years back, right there in St. Kitts, the Nata case, I think it is something that is probably trending. And I think that it's an interesting development. I think that it can bring about lots of discussion, lots of debate. So I just wanted to to mention that.
Now you touch on a few areas as it relates to responsibility in speech and rhetoric. I find, Webbo, that in these islands we do have individuals who have that potential to get persons to a point where they can bring about some good or they can bring about some bad. Naya also spoke about the social media, and I was looking around. I remember that Webbo had a comment on the wall behind me. I don't see it anymore, Webbo.
What you don't see anymore?
Maybe you have relocated it. Something
Look to your
about.
left.
Remember, I wear glasses now, so I can't see too good.
Do you mean that
No, that one.
no, that one? Which one?
The one about propaganda.
Oh, maybe it's right over there. Maybe it shifted.
Oh, okay. Because I know
It's still real. It's still.
I know it's still here.
Yeah.
Social media.
Yeah.
It's a tool that I find that for some reason persons are just prepared to say anything, whether there is any truth to it or not, and seek to impugn people's integrity and character. I listened with some interest the recent debate in our parliament where the Attorney General sought to address this particular issue, and it created in my mind a ruckus and a firestorm where persons were saying, how dare the government can say to us that they can't say what they want and do what they want on their social media platform. And I think that we look at our freedom and our independence as if that we do not have certain salient right and responsibility. It's as if that persons are prepared to say all manner of evil against Conrad Naya Libel when they themselves know that it is not true, and they feel that there ought not to be any recourse, or nobody can do them anything or say anything to them when it comes to protecting their integrity via the channels of the courts. And again I go back to some of the things that we have been hearing in the US election. There have been some very nasty things that have been said in this. You understand? Mm-hmm. And I often wonder. You said that you hope that it will not. Everything that America does. There was a saying long time ago: America sneeze and the Caribbean catch their cold, and it's something to that effect.
Yes.
A lot of the rhetoric that, and Webbo alluded to it, that the next time around could be a challenge, because we now seem to get to a point where we are prepared to say anything regardless of any consequence. And I believe that those of us who have that platform and that pulpit need to be responsible. We have to be responsible, because I'm telling you, when you push the can so far down the road and you achieve what you want to achieve by becoming the government, it is not a switch that you can automatically turn off, you know. You understand? You can't turn on this switch and get people to a point, and then when you get to the point that you want to get to, you can turn off. It does not work like that. And I'm hoping that the level of responsibility, and I go back to what I said earlier, that I hope that democracy will survive, and Naya, you spoke about it filtering down to the Caribbean. I am hoping that all of these Caribbean countries can continue that pathway of our democratic traditions. Yes, I am not saying that everything is going to be perfect in these various countries, but at least we can at least have that conversation with a level of respect. I am not saying that we ought not to challenge each other on the various issues and topics, but that level of respectable discourse, that level of mutual respect goes a long way, because everybody, their grandmother and their grandfather and their children are watching and they are listening, because the information is out there for everybody to see and hear. And when we get to that point of the precipice where, yes, you are now the government, and believe that because you're now the government that everything is going to flip overnight, it does not work that way. It comes with a level of responsibility and maturity.
Yes, and I also think, you see, down here it's different, in the Caribbean, when things get bad, it get really bad.
I agree.
Because there are times we cannot get to the bottom of crime solving. That's a problem we have here. I mean, what happened in Antigua, and we see how much crime go, unsolved here. And so, it to me, when the gate is open, it's going to be difficult to close it back.
I agree with you now.
And so we got to try and, I suppose, offer even, just be and take extra care. Because I suppose what happened in Antigua is quite an insight into the possibilities. We suffer from this thing. We see it happening amongst the people all the time. But when you turn the guns on members of parliament, it's a completely different kind of thing start going on. Gotta be mindful.
I'm really hoping that, Naya, that it's what I would call a one-off, meaning that it would not become contagious, so to speak, and other Caribbean countries would do likewise. I think if that were to happen, we could be going to doom, so to speak. I mean, when we look at parliamentarians, we look at a certain set of people in society as leaders. We should really respect ourselves first and foremost, and then of course we should respect everyone else. But having said that, though, when we look at the broader picture and we look at persons who are elected parliamentarians, persons who the public would have put their trust in, to move the country in a particular direction, or persons who a segment of the country would have put their trust in order to keep the government on their toes, in order to guide us in a particular direction. And the people are thinking, people are acting in terms of what happened in Antigua in committing murder on such personnel. It's a sad day. It's a sad day not just for Antigua Barbuda, but it's a sad day for the Caribbean. We, in many ways, are closely knit. Many ways. And I can assure you that what transpired in Antigua earlier this morning that all of the Caribbean leaders are laser focused. And I want to believe that I can put I would not say my neck, but I would stretch my arm out, and I would say that politicians in all of the English-speaking Caribbean would have reached out already to politicians in Antigua, Barbuda today to try to seek to find out what might have happened, although they are not the investigators. But sometimes people have a way of knowing things before the investigators. And that is why it is so heart-wrenching when a murder is committed. And especially if it is committed in the public. And some of these murders are committed in broad daylight. And no one seems to see. But when something of a nature that involves a male and a female happen in the dead of night, everybody see when they are supposed to be sleeping. I believe that it comes down to us as individuals, where the buck stop. You know, what do we want for ourselves if the shoe was on the other foot? We would have liked persons to come forward and speak to the authorities, or would have want persons to just stay in their shell, so to speak, and keep quiet? Over the years, if we are to go back in history, we understand that, you know, our forefathers, they would have fought for many things for us, and they would have sacrificed themselves on many of occasions for us, including putting their lives on the line so that we at present, at the moment, could live a better life. We have to understand that what we do now may have consequences 10, 15, maybe 20 years down the line. So when we say that, it wouldn't affect me, it may not affect me, but it may affect my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. You know, so what kind of society we really want to build and mold when we are not being frank, when we are not acting, you know, as civilized people, you know, when we are not leading the way we ought to lead, when we are not speaking what we ought to speak in public. And what I find, Webbo, is that many persons, in my opinion, they appear as if that they are living in two worlds. They are living in the virtual world and they are living in the real world. So it's as if when I am on social media, I'm in the virtual world. So I can do anything. I can say anything. Nothing is being policed, so to speak. I may say evil of you, Webbo, on social media. Maybe walking along and typing it on my phone on social media, and then I walk into you and I say, good morning, good evening, Webbo, how you doing? With a bright smile. You know, as if, you know, what I would have wrote on social media, other persons are not reading And maybe because of my influence, persons are not saying, yeah, Raja is right about Webbo. You know, and that is what we have to understand. There are many persons out there who are very influential when it comes to social media. And persons, you know, they would quote unquote run behind of them, and it doesn't matter what they say, whether it's positive or negative, whether it's going to have a positive impact on society or not. You know, once that influencer types something, it is gospel, and we have to be very mindful of that. We have to be mindful. We have to go back to our roots. We probably, sometimes I believe that we probably just need to detach ourselves, you know, from social media. You know, I think a few months ago, I think Facebook, WhatsApp, and probably another social media platform went down, and it's as if we didn't have any food for maybe a month or two. You know how persons were reacting. Oh my, you know, I was just typing this and I realized he ain't got you, and the person was responding, and then, you know, somebody say, I mean, come on, if it's down, it's down. You know, and as I said, maybe, you know, we need to detach ourselves. In some countries, TikTok is banned. You know, I am not.
I don't want to really interrupt, but since I'm in charge of who decide what and when, let Brand come in, because Brand, I need you to express what you're thinking as 5 years is talking.
Well, I'm here sitting and I'm listening, Mr. Raja 5 years. Webbo, we find ourselves, and he is accurate, you know, Webbo, in terms of there are persons who, quote unquote, influencers, and they put these things out there on social media, and many persons think and feel that they are the gospel. But the sad part about it, Webbo, a lot of it is not true. Most of it is far from the truth. And we tend to accept every little thing that we see on social media. That I saw it go. That happened. That it is true. And 99% of the time, a significant portion of the time, Raja used the word influencers. I was looking for the word behind it, the propaganda machinery. That's what it is, right? And it is a dangerous phenomenon that is taking place. I go back to this U.S. election because it is another glaring example, right? Comments by the former president Elon Musk, a lot of those kind of people putting up. These people have millions and millions of followers, and they put these things out there, and every single day and 20 times on Sundays, everybody have to be saying, fact checking these things and saying nothing tall goes on. And it is becoming, Webbo, as Raja used the word influencers, it's trying to influence a particular outcome.
Yeah, but the truth is, isn't it, that is not different to what it was at the beginning of the world. People have always been spinning and putting the stories the way they would like it to be, even in everyday living. People will always try to persuade you from the way they see it. And if you can do that, then maybe that's becomes how it is. Well, I have quote I like to say every now and then. And it was based on what I realized over my lifespan. Some people want to write history where they would like it to be read. But history happens.
That's right.
And I've seen a lot of people say things, and I wonder, well, when did that happen? But when they do, and it's not challenged, it becomes the gospel.
True.
And so that's what happens in everyday living. Some people find me sometimes funny or strange because people will come and tell me things as if they're asking me. But once they already said it, I leave it there. Because ain't nothing that I tell them will change it.
That's right.
So Roger, the social media and so on is just another conduit. But I think that is how things has always been.
Different medium.
I suppose the only thing that it reaches to a large number of people.
Yeah.
You say something and then somebody say, Naya, I see you on social media saying this and that, and it's like, me? They even say I was interviewed by somebody. I said, nobody interviewed me. You know? And they put it the way they want to put it for their benefit, you know. And you wonder how you know, no one asks your permission. They just run with a little legs up.
That's why Van is different.
I hear. Somebody tell me they see me on social media. I've been interviewed by some name. I said, not me. I didn't have an interview. He said, look here, man, look here. Grab his phone and show me some stuff. And of course, I just had to stoops in the end because the way they take things.
I wasn't there first time I heard that story, but you know who put it there?
No.
The guy who showed you. Learn this from me, Naya. Anytime anybody comes to me with any story, first of all, they don't come, they learn the lesson. I don't want to hear any story from anybody, right? But perchance they come. I ask you, who told you? And if you can't tell me who told you,
And when?
it's you. Because you are the person who I heard with it. So learn that. Anytime anybody comes to you with any story, they can't tell you, so whoever that fellow is he put it there. Even if he's your brother, is he put it there?
But it can become dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
The amount of people it reaches sometimes. I think that is, you know, in the past when we didn't have social media, things can be said. And it stays within, you know, a small circle. But now it's gone global.
It's something that we just got to learn to navigate. Because the big discussion, as you know now, is the AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah.
And it's how you're going to maneuver that. And, you know, as we were even talking about elections coming up and stuff like that, people are going to manufacture these stuff.
Oh yeah.
Just like the false videos, the fake videos that are out in America right now.
The what?
False videos.
Oh, of what?
Of one campaign, you know, or the other trying to, I suspect, influence voters in order to vote for them, saying things about each other.
Yeah, but Trump don't have to do no false videos. Trump videos are real.
Oh God.
And you
Webbo, as Roger mentioned that, I saw a clip, I think it was a couple days ago, of our Prime Minister doing some remarkable dance moves. And I dare say the Prime Minister is an international superstar dancer. Generated, right? And if you didn't know any better, put the message aside that were being conveyed. But when they can take a person and splice all of this thing together, I am certain that the Prime Minister did not perform any of those dance moves or any of those dance in that. And I'm there saying to myself,
he's not a dancer.
Roger, those dance moves was so creative, right? The manner in which the whole thing were created and put together, I say. See these gadgets, see these computers and these apps and so on, and mixing and in a little studio, and Webbo spoke about AI. A lot of things that appear to be real, that appear to be facts, is so far from the truth.
Let me give you a real, and as I was saying to Roger, that a lot of this stuff were happening before, but it just now that you have the technology and so on, you do a lot of stuff, right? When we started here at Vaughan Radio, somebody criticized clowns, right? Wanted to make us look.
What you mean, this side?
Yes. Wanted to make us look bad. So they manufactured certain statements by saying, those days we never used to have caller IDs and so on, were not invented as yet, at least in this part of the world. So they started to make up stuff by saying that we have secret numbers that certain people can call and stuff like that and so on and so forth in order to get in. So people always, once people want to create mischief, they will use their imagination and whatever tools they have to do it. So the thinking of doing these things was always there. When the devil was trying to overthrow Jesus, God, we all know what he did, right? So it's always there, and once you have those sort of thoughts in your brain, and you find the tools to do it,
they will come to the fore.
They'll come to the fore, and that's basically it. And one night I remember a fellow told me in confession, one day he told me that he has to confess because he used to believe it. And then what happened was, one time, I think was the first time that we had joined up with the NTV then to carry the election, some election debates and stuff like that. And then he said he watched me as we put the calls in the air. And then when he realized that it was not true. You see what I'm saying? So people will always, a lot of other foolishness people have said over the years. That's why, they fit under that thing over there. So don't be despondent, Roger. That's how things are. And we just have to figure, as Edric would say, figure it out. How to get this thing figured out.
Webbo, Honorable Brand mentioned a name that stuck with me, Elon Musk. And one may ask what he has to do with the presidential election in the United States. But here's a gentleman, a multimillionaire, billionaire, who would have asked persons to sign a petition. And if you sign that petition, you have an opportunity to win $1 million. But hear this. You could only sign the petition if you are in a state that is considered to be a swing state. Example, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and the others. I think it might be 7 states that are considered as swing states. And persons have been asking, can this be constituted as bribery?
But the matter was taken to court in Raja. You aware of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name, wrong?
But I mean, you know, it's a kind of a creative way, so to speak. You know, so as Webbo would have said, you know, things come to mind and they find ways, they use tools. I guess in this instance they use creativity, you know, to come up by how can I buy out, you know, some voters. Bearing in mind that I think in one of these swing states, President Biden would have won in 2020 by 0.3 percentage point. So that is how close it is. You know, and this elections, you know, is considered to be one of the closest. You know, I mean, after the results are coming, then we might say something different. But for now, it is considered to be one of the closest elections and most keenly contested elections to date. So, my question would have been, why not all the states? Why only the swing states you have in this petition?
Well, because
He need a particular outcome.
Yeah, and his way of doing it is his money. Well, the court says okay, get on with it. It is not unconstitutional.
And another aspect to
and obviously it doesn't constitute bribery as it relates to, you know, the protocols of the election.
And another aspect to this too is that it appears if no one knows how they arrive at a winner.
How you mean they don't know how they arrive at a winner?
You know, if you're doing a lottery or you're doing a draw, you put probably all the person's name in a bag and shake it up and you pull out the name. You know, it seems as if that no one knows, you know, how they come up with a winner.
You think that no one knows?
Persons know, but I guess the wider public, they don't know.
I think it has is objective, and I think it will achieve its objective. Not sure if it's going to make a big difference, because the truth about it, you know, Democrats or Republican can be a part of it, and but there's a hope that it would encourage more Republicans to, you know, it's ways and means and schemes, you know. Maybe we see such things in these parts too, you know, because some people only have a lot of money as well. Some people only have a lot of money, you know. You're going to find some deep thinking employed, and it's going to fall within the scope of democratic, within the, you know, that scope of democratic practices. It seems as if we are now extending that type of stuff, using other ways and means, and coming closer to the edge of this democracy, which, you know, which we are talking about, and yet the court wouldn't find reason to put it down, but it would have a major impact or some kind of impact, probably or hopefully, on the outcome of the election. We know finance has a big part to play. In these parts, we don't really have that limitation on finance. That is a threat to democracy also. And so we have a long way to go if we are to really uphold on the strict lines this democratic thing that we tend to follow sometimes, or we like to follow. You know, but democracy is not just about voting. Democracy is also about the people's ability and ableness, without discrimination, to express themselves. It's about the media. It's about newspapers. But sometimes we only think in terms of it as casting the voting. And I think in the Caribbean we got to look at it, in a more wider sense.
Mm-hmm. But Naya, let me ask a question. Would you say that?
I mean, just let me say what you've said about the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and passing that bill. That is, to me, a great exercise of democracy. That you can be a part of the government and still run in an election. Yes. Well, why not?
But I hear you, and I saw the item on the news, and I paid some attention to it. And what I find interesting is, while they have gone into Parliament and create something for persons who are working, and I need to get the entire text of what was passed in Parliament. There are still some sensitive areas of persons who are in sensitive position in government that is still not allowed to run.
Yes.
So, while it is a step in my mind in the right direction, talking about democracy, there are still some persons within the structure of the government,
yes,
that is still barred from participating in election because of the position that they hold in the structure of the government while you are working for government.
Yes, but of course, but you can be moved around, If you want to run politics and you're functioning in that sensitive area of government, well, you lose your position to another position.
Transfer.
I wanted to ask you, but while you were speaking, you spoke about the press and democracy. Do you feel that the press in the Caribbean is being stifled to participate in the democratic process? And when I'm talking about press, I'm talking about serious journalism, serious people who are serious about journalism, and getting at the root of a particular story or a particular issue. Do you feel that the press, journalism, is being stifled in the Caribbean?
I have no great evidence of that, really, but that can simply happen overnight. I think you can have a newspaper which is the most popular newspaper in an island, and because of political links, refuse to engage members of of the public or political party that threatens the government.
Sometimes, though, if I can chime in here, maybe the press is not stifled, so to speak, But it could be one or two things. It might be that the press might be afraid to ask certain questions and put maybe certain persons on the spot, so to speak. And it might also be because the press, quote unquote, is afraid of asking certain questions to certain politicians because of what might happen to them as a business house.
But even the concept of two main political party and that culture that exists in the Caribbean and even in America, that has come up as a question to in terms of being threatening to democracy. People are saying that we must have that idea of competitiveness. Other parties should be encouraged, and maybe things should be in place that other parties are encouraged, because it's a part of that competitiveness. It's a part of that public capitalistic approach that democracy sometimes encourages.
But Naya, let me ask a question. You believe the more parties you have strengthens or expand democracy? And here's why I'm asking the question. St. Martin. I believe that they just had an election a few months ago,
and one in January before,
and one went last year, and one the year before. Mine, I'm not the perhaps, and maybe their system is slightly different. But I happen to be in St. Martin for, I think, maybe a few days before the election in St. Martin. And I believe that the amount of political parties that they had in St. Martin blows my mind. And you are going to get two from this side, one from this side, two from that side, and they try to put a government together. And within 3 months, the whole thing collapsed. Right? I am not saying that persons aren't or should not be allowed to pursue their political ambitions and desires and so on. But I'm saying that, and it has been perhaps a workable tradition for many, many decades, where you have two main political parties, three maybe, and whichever political party gets the majority of seats can form the government. You are expecting that whoever gets the majority of seats and form the government, that political setup would last the time. But when you have these two from this, one from that, one from that, everybody is juggling for their own position, and oftentimes it creates some challenge. And more times than not, those governments tend to collapse, right? And we have seen it throughout a lot of these when you try to put these, and we had a real case right here in St. Kitts and Nevis recently, where you had this structure and the whole thing collapsed because of whatever, right? Don't get me wrong, I am not saying that we ought not to have 2 or 3 or 4 political parties, but I feel that at times persons are in it from the different groups that have their own agenda, not necessarily the agenda of the wider spectrum, and it can create some challenge. I'm not saying that it is wrong for you to put, because it has worked, right? But I feel that when you have 2, 3, it gives that, in my mind, and the record have shown to greater extent a bit more stability within the country.
But Bren, it doesn't, at the end of the day, come down to
personality. Yes. A lot of it hindered on personalities.
Because I don't know if you all are abreast of what's happening, for instance, in Montserrat, you know. I think for the last few going arounds, they change the government each time.
Yes.
Nobody is getting a second term. Now, I don't know if you were here in those days, but the records and the evidence will show that I have said on the record that Caribbean people, one of these days, going to wake up and realize that everybody's just fooling them. And it will be difficult for anybody to get two terms in a row. And it's already becoming very difficult because, again, it comes down to personalities. One of the things that I found out, I realize happens a lot is this, and Mr. Brand was making a point to, is that we decided, let's say the 4 of us, no, not the 3 of you, because that wouldn't include me. Let's say the 3 of you decide now we're going to form a party and you're going to run, right? Well, maybe I might be the strategist, right? But not running. So let's say we decide to do that. The 3 of you now may have a particular goal or agenda. Now, me and Melissa here is now the voters. So you come and you campaign to me and her and everybody else. And so, based on what you tell us, to get us to, get you over the hump, we work with you. And then after you over the hump, we're still keeping looking. But the 2 of us were not aligned in terms of our goals and objectives, Your thing was for me to get you over the hump and then see you next time. And I think that's where the disconnect comes in a lot. And why you see people start get disappointed. So, that's part of what the reality is.
But as you said, Ben alluded to, I think that it's...
Can I just make thing, because this thing keeps haunting me like it has you all every night. Every time I try to get on another topic, I hear Edric trying to interfere with my brain.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always remember about him, he was so good and genuine to me. And just like I had him, he had me. So one night we having a fierce debate. Ben might have been on the show at the time. Now I feel you were here too. And to tell the truth, sometimes people can persuade me, easily. So this person was making a point, and Edric looked at me, and he figured that I was falling. And all of a sudden I just hear, Webbo, she can't fool you. I said, really? He said, she can't fool you. When you remember?
Well, yes, Webbo, he has bailed all of us out at times.
So I was just about, seemingly, in his view, in his evaluation, I was about to be fooled. So he just let me know, they can't fool you.
He had that intuition when I think we were probably going a little bit off course, and I think that there have been many times when he would, chime in and pick us up, as you put it, and get us back on track and help us to stabilize our point and our argument.
Yeah, he was never laid back in his seat.
Yeah, he
had that passion and full engagement at times. You know.
But you all don't know this. Every time it seemed as if I trapped him the night, I'm getting a call the next morning.
And he will discuss the matter.
And you all would know that because sometimes he will come back the next week.
Yeah.
And raise it again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I like him. He believed in his point.
Yep.
Tooth and nail.
And I have the distinct honor to be the only man who was able to get him to admit
That he was wrong.
he was talking nonsense. the evidence of the tape is there. I have gotten so many responses since from near and far and wide. Personal thing for my personal loss.
Yeah.
I have a cousin in England. He just loves to hear Edric. I had an uncle who passed away last year, very nice guy. And I can't remember he was very close to me, that uncle. And I can't remember my cousin sending me sympathy greetings. But he sent me sympathy greetings for Edric. He lives in England because so
that was the bond.
Yeah, that's so you know, it is what it is.
Webbo, if you permit me, I want to switch the topic for a half a minute. I want to congratulate the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Youth and Sports for the recently concluded primary school football championships. I was at the park on Saturday, and I want to raise a matter here, Webbo, before I get to the thank you and the congratulation part of it. The national anthem of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis were being played, and I observed with some great dismay a number of persons were sitting, a number of persons were moving about, a number of persons seem not to pay any attention whatsoever to our national anthem. I want to encourage our people that the island of Nevis and the island of St. Kitts, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, have came out of a history where our voices and our actions and our aspirations and determination were being guided by the slave masters. We have, for the last 40 plus years, celebrated this rich tradition of obtaining our independence. And I want to encourage our people that whenever they hear our national anthem being played, to treat our national anthem with a sense of respect. Many men and many women, many sons and many daughters would have shed blood, sweat and tears for us to have this right and this privilege. I want to say to our people, it is a privilege that we need to celebrate. It is something that we need to appreciate, that we have arrived at a point in our history that we can have our own national anthem, our land of beauty, our country where peace abounds. I want to say that to our people, Webbo, because honestly it upset me. It really, really upset me. I am saying it here because I believe that Von Radio have a global listenership, a global audience. And I want our people to appreciate the importance of our national anthem. Webbo, I want to congratulate the St. Thomas's Primary School for winning that championship. And I want to say to the Joycelyn Library Primary School, better luck next time. I must say that I believe that the Joycelyn Library Primary School was definitely outplayed by St. Thomas's. I see that we have quite a number of young talent in our primary school, and I hope that the various coaches and the education department can continue to nurture these young talent and get them to bigger and better things. The third place winner, the Ivor Walters Primary School, and the fourth place winner, Charleston Primary School, did not do as well as I would have liked, but I want to say to the top four, and of course all of the other schools and all of the organizers, all of the officials, all of the coaches, the bus drivers, everyone, the sponsors, everyone who would have had anything to do with this championship. It is a sign of good things here in our country. We often hear that our young people this and our young people that, and all manner of evil against our young people. And I think that this was a good example, another good display where our young people are doing some good things. So I want to say congratulations to all, and a special congratulations to the St. Thomas's Primary School for winning this championship. And I think it was what, 3-0, Roger?
2.
Oh, after penalties. This, I felt, Webbo, was a good example of what our young people are doing, and I certainly want to wish them the very best in their sporting endeavors.
Webbo, I too want to join Minister Brannan saying congratulations to all those who are involved in, pulling off a successful football championship, primary school championship. I want to go a bit further, and I want to thank the all who Mr. Brannan would have thanked, and also the spectators. I want to believe that the spectators helped, to bring the atmosphere, to actually bring the hype and to lift the level and the standard of play. I believe also that it was good that it was able to be streamed. I think persons, I must admit, I was unable to attend the finals on Saturday because I wasn't feeling well, and I was able to sit at home and view it, and I want to commend the organizers for that. I want to congratulate all the teams also. I want to make special mention of the top 4. Charlestown Primary, I think they came 4th. The Ivor Walters Primary, they were the champions of the regular league, and the Joycelyn Library Primary School for placing 2nd. And of course the champion team, the St. Thomas's Primary. I must admit, when I saw the St. Thomas's Primary School played their very first match, I said to my wife, they are going to win the championship. I said it because I believe I know a little about football, notwithstanding that I'm a Gingerlander, and I would have wanted the Joycelyn Library Primary School to win, but I had to admit that because of the level. I think that they played with an understanding. They read the game. I think that the level of fitness too, I think played a crucial part in them advancing from the semi-finals, because that game that they won in the semi-finals, I believe that the fitness, it came down to fitness, and they were a well-oiled machine. And congratulations again to the St. Thomas's Primary School. You have done your school, you have done your community proud, your teachers, your coaches, your parents, and kudos to you.
I just want to go back just for a moment. So, Mr. Brand, are you saying that there were some protesters not honoring the national anthem of the Federation?
I wouldn't say that they were protesters. I looked at what I saw were just persons who were just unconcerned.
Because if there were some protesters, or you probably can view them as protesters, they have that right. This is a democracy, and that is what we were talking about earlier. And I'm, for one, at times have serious consideration as it relates to the national anthem, because you know I'm a secessionist, and you know the hardship we've been going through with Sinkett's government and the way we feel about the way they've been dealing with us. Sometimes it brings that consciousness to the surface. And yes, our forefathers been through what they've been through and everything else, but I think when you see a division decide not to honor that, for reasons being that Sinkett's has been, or the political framework in Sinkett's has been dealing with Nevis unjustly, unfairly, and that's a means of protesting, let it be, because this is a democracy. I mean, we just been talking about it. People are free to do that also. I mean, when you hear that there is a board of governors and no division is on it as it relates to the CBI program, we are still in deep waters of being treated unfairly. And that's why today, up to today, divisions are not too emotional about this independence thing with Sinkett's, you know. And it's a fact. But you guys are trying to, seems to, like I want to erase that from the minds of the people. It is not something that's going to go easily. We've been dealing with this from the 60s. I've been dealing with it from the 60s. And so, when that happens, unless it's absolute disregard and just, you know, but if it's a sign of protest, let it be. Because there are those who still carry the burden and deal with the indignation of this unfair treatment that Nevis has been enduring with Sinkett's. And don't let me say Nevis, but the political framework in Nevis has been dealing with the political framework in Sinkett's. It's a very serious thing and deep-rooted thing. And that's why we do not get so emotional. I mean, at the 40th anniversary, they sent a lot of flags, and there was all over. But the 41, we didn't see so much flags. I mean, how much people show up at Grove Park to say that we are here to celebrate this independence march and all this? Divisions are not into it. So be sensitive in that regard. I would like you to be, remembering that this is a democracy we are living in.
Can I ask a question? Okay,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, brother.
Which one I want to question?
Well, let me go. I hear you, Naya, and I respect your position. I looked at what I saw as persons in my mind who were just unconcerned. I believe that we can.
We want the national anthem.
I believe we can recognize protest when we see it.
Okay.
And I think that you know a protest when you see it. And I am saying that what I saw was not a protest. They were just persons who just could not be bothered.
Let me see how many you learn anything from Edric. Naya, who is going to win the election?
Donald Trump.
You kidding or you're serious?
Serious.
You're serious. Brand, who's going to win?
I believe Kamala Harris is going to win the election.
Fifield, who's going to win?
Kamala Harris.
What's your prediction?
As I always do. You remember one night I told a fellow, Mister,
I expected
I asked you
better.
questions Anyway, as we said, next week we will, do some concentrate on
Certainly.
those guys.
Yeah.
And see what we get together. Okay? This program repeats at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Branty tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark, and Keith Scarborough on Thursday evening for Government at Work. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed in the preceding program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of Webbo's Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertiser.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.